The late afternoon sun bled gold over Ikoyi, casting long shadows across the once grand Adebayo estate. Inside the mansion, 19-year-old Zainab Adebayo sat quietly on the edge of a mahogany staircase, scrubbing its ornate railings with a ragged sponge. Her blue cleaning apron was stained, her fingers raw from constant housework. This was her home, but no longer her life. Just 3 years ago, she had been the apple of her father's eye. Chief Abdul Adebayo, a renowned oil magnate, had promised Zainab the world, education abroad, a future in business, and most importantly, love. But all that died with him in a suspicious car crash on the Third Mainland Bridge. His death triggered a chain of betrayals that no teenage girl could have seen coming. Her stepmother, Ronk, had played the grieving widow perfectly in public. But behind closed doors, she turned the house into a silent battleground. Zainab's room was given to Tenny and Laura, Ronk's stylish but wicked daughters. Zainab herself was demoted to the dusty servants' quarters, the same ones that used to house their steward. Lara's voice echoed from the top floor. The mop isn't going to use itself. Or do you need a YouTube tutorial for that too? Zainab didn't reply. She had learned silence was her shield. Each day, she wore her invisibility like a second skin. Wake early. Clean. Cook. Disappear. Repeat. She did it without complaint, not because she was weak, but because somewhere deep inside, she still carried the remnants of her father's voice. Never dim your light for anyone, my princess. Even if they blindfold you in the dark, your light will guide you home. Zainab clung to that hope. She had applied, secretly, to Unilag, hoping that her good grades from secondary school could still mean something. Every day, after cleaning, she would sneak into the abandoned library upstairs to read outdated textbooks by flashlight. But her stepmother was watching. And plotting. That evening, as Zainab finished her chores, Ronk appeared in the hallway, heels clicking like warning shots. You're not sleeping in the servant's room tonight, she said with a tight smile. You're wearing something nicer. We are going somewhere. Zainab looked up, confused. Where are we going? Ronk's expression didn't change. Don't ask questions. Just do as you're told. And just like that, Zainab's world was about to shift again, this time, into something even darker. The night air in Ikoyi was unusually still, as though the city itself sensed something wasn't right. Zainab stood in front of a tall mirror in the guest room, her reflection unrecognizable. The dress Ronk had chosen for her clung tightly to her slim frame, an emerald green satin gown far too revealing for her comfort. The heels pinched her toes, and the unfamiliar layers of makeup felt like a mask she couldn't remove. She hated how exposed she looked. How prepared she felt, like she was being dressed up for someone else's fantasy. When Ronk appeared in the doorway, arms folded and smile tight, she gave Zainab a once-over and nodded. Good. Now smile, she said with a hollow tone. Tonight, you become a woman. Zainab's heart skipped. What do you mean? Where are we going? You see, Ronk replied, walking off before she could protest. The sleek black SUV waiting outside glided silently through Ikoyi's high-end streets, past banks, boutiques, and old colonial mansions now owned by billionaires. Zainab's thoughts raced. They finally pulled into the private driveway of the Eden Residences, one of the most expensive high-rises in Lagos. The gates parted. Zainab's palms began to sweat. Inside the penthouse, everything gleamed, crystal chandeliers, white marble floors, gold accents. It was the kind of place she had only seen in magazines. Yet she felt no awe. Only fear. A tall man stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, dressed in an ash-gray suit, his back to them. He turned slowly when they entered. Mr. Akinwell, this is Zainab, Ronk said with syrupy sweetness. Just like we discussed. The man's eyes scanned Zainab with unsettling intensity. Older, mid-40s, with a neatly trimmed beard and the air of someone used to power, Teyo Akinwell was one of Nigeria's most elusive billionaires. Real estate mogul. Kingmaker. Cold as marble. Zainab didn't speak. She didn't understand. A quiet exchange happened between Ronk and Teyo. Zainab caught fragments. She's untouched. You'll get full discretion. Payment as agreed. Suddenly, the truth hit her like a brick wall. Her stepmother hadn't brought her here for dinner. She had sold her. Her vision blurred. Her lungs clenched. And then, Ronk leaned in and whispered, "Smile, Zainab. Don't ruin this for both of us." Zainab did not smile. Instead, she did something she had never dared to do in years. She turned, stormed out of the room, and ran. Down the gilded hallway. Past confused security. Into the elevator. Out into the dark Lagos night. She didn't know where she was going. She only knew she had to get anywhere but here. Zainab ran until her lungs burned, until the chaos of Lagos nightlife blurred around her like a bad dream. Horns blared. Voices shouted. But all she could hear was the echo of Ronk's betrayal. "Smile, Zainab." She didn't stop running until her legs gave out. Her knees hit the wet pavement just as a screech of tires pierced the night. A car. Too fast. Coming straight for her. She froze. But in the blink of a second, strong arms yanked her out of harm's way. Her body slammed into a warm chest, her breath ragged as the car whizzed by, horn blaring in its wake. "You alright?" a deep voice asked. Zainab looked up, heart still racing. He was young. Maybe in his mid-20s. Chocolate-toned skin. Disheveled dreadlocks tied back. Hoodie. Jeans. There was a softness in his eyes that unsettled her, because it felt safe. I don't know," she stammered, still dazed. The stranger crouched beside her, steady hands on her shoulders. "You don't have to talk," he said gently. "Just breathe." Zainab let the air fill her lungs. For the first time in hours, she noticed how quiet the world felt next to him. "I'm Farak," he added, standing and offering his hand. She took it. "Zainab." There was a pause. He didn't ask why she was barefoot in a party gown, makeup smeared, trembling. He didn't ask what she was running from. Instead, he said, "Come on. Let's get you somewhere safe." He took her to a modest house tucked away in Yoba, the kind of place that felt like it had seen real life. An older woman with silver cornrows answered the door. "Know who be this one?" the woman asked sharply, eyeing Zainab. "She's not safe at home," Farak replied. "Can she stay, Mama?" The woman hesitated, her gaze scanning Zainab's tear-streaked face, then stepped aside. "She go stay. But tomorrow, I must hear the full story." Inside, the smell of jollof rice and shea butter calmed her. Mama showed her to a room, handed her a wrapper, and left her in silence. Zainab sank onto the bed, still in shock. Her life had changed in a single night. She had no plan. No money. But she had escaped. And now, somehow, she had found a stranger who hadn't asked for anything but her name. Zainab woke up to the unfamiliar hum of ceiling fans and the soft clatter of pots in the kitchen. Morning light filtered through faded curtains. Her borrowed wrapper slipped from her shoulder as she sat up, momentarily forgetting where she was. Then it all came rushing back. Ronk. The mansion. Teo Ekinwell. The escape. And Farouk. She crept into the corridor and followed the smell of fried plantain to the small kitchen. Mama was stirring a pot while Farak leaned against the counter, sipping Gary. "She don't wake," Mama muttered, not looking up. "Good morning," Zainab said softly. Mama turned, her sharp eyes scanning Zainab from head to toe. "You look better this morning. Sit." Zainab obeyed. Farak slid a cup of warm tea toward her. They ate in silence, soft bread, fried plantain, and spicy eggs too. The kind of breakfast Zainab hadn't had in years. Not since before her mother died. After the meal, Mama finally spoke. "Now tell me, who they pursue you?" Zainab hesitated. "I was sold," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "By my stepmother. To a billionaire." Mama's spoon froze midair. Farak's grip on his cup tightened. "She dressed me up, told me we were going for dinner," Zainab continued, her voice steadier now. But it was a setup. She made a deal with a man, said I was untouched. A silence settled over the room like a fog. Mama eventually exhaled. So that wicked woman try use you make money. Zainab nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. I ran. I didn't know where else to go. Farag stood, walked over, and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You did the right thing, he said quietly. You're not going back there. Zainab looked up at him. But, what now? I have nothing. You have us, Mama said, surprising her. And we don't leave our own behind. Zainab blinked back the tears. She hadn't known kindness in years. Not like this. Not without conditions. For the first time since her mother's death, she felt like someone had opened a door for her, not just to a house, but to the possibility of healing. The days passed slowly in Mama Tenny's house, but for Zainab, each one stitched a small patch over the gaping hole in her soul. She swept the compound every morning, helped in the kitchen, and watched Mama hawk homemade shea butter by the roadside. It wasn't luxury, but it was real. Honest. Farag came and went, never saying much about where he went or what he did. But every evening, he returned with food and a tired smile just for her. Still, Zainab couldn't sleep. Each night, she'd lie on the thin mattress staring at the ceiling, replaying the mansion, the trap, wrong smirk, and him. Teyo Ekinwell. His name haunted her. Not just because of what he represented, a man who thought her body was a transaction, but because of what he still had. Power. Money. And her silence. She sat up one night and whispered to the darkness, I should tell someone. But who would believe her? She had no proof. No voice. Just a truth that lived in her bones. The next morning, she asked Farag about it. If I speak out, she said, would anyone even listen? He looked at her carefully, then said something that surprised her. Sometimes, people only listen when the whole world is watching. She stared at him. You mean, go online? Farag nodded. Tell your story. Own it. Not just for you, but for every girl like you. Zainab's hands trembled at the thought. I'm not brave. You are, he said softly. You ran when it mattered. That's the kind of courage the world needs. That night, she stared at Mama Tenny's old laptop. The screen flickered. The cursor blinked. And slowly, she began to type. Her name hidden. Her voice steady. Her pain, raw. But her story. Unstoppable. By the third paragraph of her anonymous blog post, Zainab was shaking. She had never told anyone the full story, not even Farag. But on that flickering screen, her words flowed like a dam finally breaking. My name isn't important. But what happened to me is... I was sold. Not to a stranger on the street, but to a billionaire in a mansion. They dressed me up. Lied to me. Paraded me like a new toy. My stepmother sold my body like it was nothing. And the worst part. I'm not the only one. She had published just past midnight. By morning, the blog had 142 views. By evening, 5,300. By the next day, #SheIsNotProperty was trending. Nigerian Twitter exploded. Radio shows debated it. TV anchors discussed it in coded language. And in a glossy office high above Victoria Island, Teyo Ekinwell's phone wouldn't stop ringing. He stood at the window of his skyscraper suite, jaw clenched, staring out at the city he controlled. Find her, he backed into the phone. Now. Meanwhile, in a dingy cybercafe on the mainland, Farag printed out pages of Zainab's post, just in case the blog got taken down. You're changing lives, he told her that evening. Zainab nodded, but inside, fear gnawed at her. The blog had gone viral. But so had she. And with every like, every share, every DM from strangers, she knew one thing for sure. Teyo would come looking. The backlash came like a hurricane. First, the blog mysteriously went offline. Then came the fake news articles, anonymous posts calling Zainab a runaway maid, a gold digger, even a fraud. They didn't know her name. But they knew how to smear her. That morning, Farak rushed into Mama Tenny's compound holding his phone. "They've launched a counter-campaign," he said, showing her the screen. "They are saying you made it all up for attention." Zainab's lips parted in disbelief. "But I told the truth. Truth doesn't matter to men like Teo. Only silence." That night, someone knocked on Mama Tenny's gate. It was a tall man in a grey agbada, sunglasses on even at dusk. He handed Mama a sealed brown envelope and left without a word. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Cease and desist. Any further defamatory claims against Chief Teo Ekinwe will result in criminal prosecution and civil damages." Zainab felt her knees weaken. "He's trying to scare you," Farak said. "But we're not backing down." Zainab looked at the envelope again. She had no money. No lawyer. Just the truth. But for the first time since that cursed night at the mansion, she stood tall. "Then let him come," she whispered. "I didn't start this to run." Zainab was hanging clothes to dry when she heard the car. A sleek black Range Rover pulled up outside Mama Tenny's gate, its tinted windows casting a shadow over the compound. Farak was already halfway to the door, his fist clenched. But it wasn't thugs this time. It was him. Teo Ekinwe. He stepped out in his custom white kaftan, sunglasses perched arrogantly on his nose, a subtle smirk tugging at his lips. Zainab froze. Every memory came flooding back, his cold stare, the velvet mansion, the transaction she never agreed to. "Zainab," he said calmly, like they were old friends. Mama Tenny stepped forward, shielding her. "You have no business here," the old woman barked. Teo raised both hands in mock innocence. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here to talk." "You've said enough," Zainab hissed, her voice shaking. "You don't get to come here." Teo turned to her, his tone smooth but sharp. "You think this blog protects you? You think a few hashtags will save you from what's coming?" Farak stepped forward. "And you think we're afraid of your name?" For a moment, the tension could slice through skin. But then Teo chuckled darkly. "I admire your courage. I truly do. But be careful, Zainab. You're not the only one with a story. And in my version, you're the villain." He turned and walked away, leaving the weight of his threat behind. Zainab's legs buckled. Mama Tenny caught her. Farak just stared at the car until it vanished down the road. The monster had returned. And the real war had begun. The internet was still buzzing when Zainab went live on Instagram. Her face was bare, no makeup, no filters. Just raw truth. "You want the full story," she began, voice steady. "Let me give it to you. I was sold. By my stepmother. To a billionaire. And now he's threatening me." Within minutes, the comments were flooding in. "Fire, name him. Crown, we believe you, sis. Broken heart, this happens to too many girls." Mama Tenny sat silently nearby, clutching her Bible. Farak was behind the camera, his jaw set. Then Zainab pulled out the voice note. A secret recording of Carla, her stepmother, laughing with a woman over the phone. "She's untouched, rich men love that. Teo's paying more than we expected." She pressed play. The laughter echoed through every speaker in Nigeria. By the next hour, it was everywhere, Twitter, radio, even Alausa News. That night, Zainab's blog sold for silence crashed from too much traffic. And by dawn, a storm was forming. Activists called for Carla's arrest. A petition to investigate Teo Ekinwe reached 150,000 signatures in 24 hours. But just as the fire burned brightest, Zainab's phone lit up. Unknown number. She stared at it, hands trembling. Then she answered. "Zainab," came the voice on the other end. "Deep. Calm. Dangerous. You've played your move. Now it's my turn." Click. The threat didn't shake her, it activated something in her. Zainab stood in front of a packed press hall, lights blazing, cameras blinking, the whole country watching. Dressed in a crisp emerald green blouse and black palazzo trousers, she looked nothing like the girl who once scrubbed Carla's floors. Behind her stood Farak, Mama Tenny, and 3 young women, survivors like her. I am not the first girl this has happened to, Zainab said into the mic, voice unwavering. But I swear by everything I have left, I will be the last who stays silent. She paused. My name is Zainab Odigon. And I was sold. But I will not be owned. The room broke into applause. A young woman in a hijab wiped away tears. Reporters raised their hands, but Zainab kept speaking. I've submitted evidence to the Ministry of Women Affairs. I've retained pro bono counsel. And to Chief Teyo Ekinwell, if you're watching, this is your reckoning. Across town, Teyo sat alone in his high-rise office. He watched her live stream in silence. His jaw clenched. He poured himself a drink, but his hands shook. Because for the first time in his life, someone wasn't just calling him out. She was calling him down. And the world was listening. At Ekinwell Holdings Lagos headquarters, the air was ice. The company's board members sat stiffly around the glossy marble table, their eyes darting toward the empty chair at the head. Until the double doors burst open. Teyo Ekinwell entered, flanked by 2 silent bodyguards. He moved with the arrogance of royalty, but even a king can smell fear. And today, the fear was his own. A senior partner, gray-haired and bitter, spoke first. Teyo, this scandal is bleeding us. Investors are pulling out. Clients are. I am the clients, Teyo snapped. But the girl will fade, he said coldly. We have ways. Someone across the table cleared their throat. It was Adebayo, the company's legal director. I heard from ministry insiders. She's not fading. She's filing. There's a police task force forming around her case. Teyo's jaw tightened. Then Adebayo added, and someone in this company leaked her file. A hush fell. Teyo scanned the table slowly. Who? No one spoke. But he knew. He knew who it had to be. His brother. Ethan. Ethan Ekinwell stood alone on the rooftop of a quiet hotel in Ikoyi, his phone buzzing with message after message. He had expected backlash, he didn't expect his own brother to go completely silent. Until now. His phone rang. Teyo. Ethan answered but didn't speak. Teyo's voice sliced through the line. You leaked her file. I did. You're ruining this family. No, Ethan replied calmly. You did that the moment you bought a woman. There was silence. Then. She means something to you. Ethan exhaled. She reminds me of Mom, Teyo. The strength. The silence. The way they both fought and no one listened, until it was too late. Teyo's voice dropped to a whisper, laced with warning. You've chosen sides. Ethan didn't flinch. I didn't choose sides. I chose right. Then he hung up. Inside his coat pocket was a small USB drive, the one that held every recorded conversation, financial transaction, and document tied to the illegal deal. He stared out at the Lagos skyline. Zainab. I'm in this now. All the way. Far away, Zainab sat in the cafe after her shift, unaware that the war had officially begun. The camera went live. Zainab sat in her modest living room, the lighting soft, her voice steady. This wasn't a press conference, it was a reckoning. Tonight, she said, looking directly into the lens, I'm going to show you the truth about Teyo Ekinwell. She clicked a button. A slideshow of screenshots filled the screen, money transfers, encrypted messages, receipts tied to hush money payments, and the contract Carla had signed, one that treated her as property. Gasps filled the comment section. Then came the audio. Teyo's voice. As long as no one talks, it's clean. She's a nobody. No one will believe her. The video cut back to Zainab. Her expression hardened. I was a nobody to you. But now, I'm everybody. The internet exploded. Twitter. Instagram. Blogs. TV. Hashtag Justice for Zainab began to trend globally. At that moment, in the comfort of his penthouse, Theo threw his glass against the wall. But it was too late. The monster was no longer hiding. He had been unmasked by the girl he thought would stay silent. Carla paced frantically in her Banana Island townhouse, her designer heels clicking on imported marble like a ticking clock of doom. The live stream had destroyed everything. How dare she shrieked, throwing her wineglass at the mirror. It shattered, just like her image. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She picked up, breathless. Carla Becker. Yes. This is Inspector Yusuf from the EFCC. We'll be arriving at your residence shortly to discuss your role in an active trafficking and fraud case. Click. Carla froze. She turned to her daughters, Natasha and Beverly, lounging in silk robes, oblivious to the storm brewing. Pack your things. Now. Mom, what's going on? Natasha asked. Carla didn't answer. Her perfectly sculpted face had drained of color. Her empire, built on manipulation, greed, and Zainab's suffering, was crumbling. And somewhere in the city, Zainab sat with her hands clasped, breathing in freedom, as news of Carla's impending arrest hit every major news outlet. It was poetic. The same woman who sold her was now being publicly auctioned to justice. Ethan waited at the gates of Akinwell Holdings, arms crossed, eyes hard. He had requested a private meeting with Theo, one last chance. Inside the glass-walled boardroom, the air was tense. The city skyline glittered behind them, but nothing shone brighter than the silent threat between brothers. Theo sat like a king at the head of the table, lips tight. "You've humiliated this family," he said flatly. "You disgraced it long before I did," Ethan replied. "I came here to give you one chance." He slid a thick envelope across the table. "This is the deal. Step down. Issue a public apology. Donate half your shares to the victims' fund. In exchange, I don't hand this," he lifted a flash drive, "to the police." Theo laughed bitterly. "You'd ruin your own blood." Ethan leaned in. "You ruined Zainab. She trusted me. I failed her once. I won't again." Silence. Theo's knuckles whitened around the chair. Ethan stood. "You have 24 hours. After that, I walk into the press room with this." He walked out, leaving Theo in a pool of quiet rage. That night, Theo stared at the skyline alone. The empire he'd built on silence was now threatened by his own brother. And Zainab. She was sleeping peacefully for the first time in years. But the war wasn't over yet. Zainab sat by the window of her new apartment in Victoria Island, a steaming mug of tea in her hands. The world outside buzzed with chaos, but inside, she was calm. For the first time in years, she had no orders to follow, no insults to dodge, no fear choking her breath. Just peace. Then her phone rang. It was a call from Channels TV. "Zainab Becker. We'd like to feature your story on the woman who fought back. Your blog, your courage, it's inspired millions." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she thought of her mother. Of her father's silence. Of Carla's schemes. Of Theo's cold eyes. And Ethan's trembling hands when he last said, "I'm sorry." Zainab finally smiled. "Yes. I'll do it." Later that night, as she rehearsed for the interview, her voice faltered. "But only once. I used to think silence was safety. But it's not. Speaking saved me. And now, I keep speaking, for every girl who still can't." She looked at her reflection, older, stronger, wiser. This time, when she spoke, the silence didn't break her. She broke it. Here is the next compelling chapter. Zainab was adjusting her mic backstage at Channels TV when she heard a voice she hadn't expected to hear again, deep, steady, unmistakably familiar. "She's not just a survivor, she's a revolution." She froze. Turning slowly, she saw Ethan, dressed in a dark blazer, standing beside the show's producer. His eyes met hers, gentle, cautious, but unwavering. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice low. He stepped forward. "I didn't come to fix things. I know I can't. I just wanted to see you step into your light." "You deserve to know." Zainab cut him off, eyes narrowed. "That you helped build the shadows I had to climb out of." Ethan's throat tightened. "Yes. But I also helped tear them down." Silence stretched between them, heavy and unfinished. Finally, Zainab exhaled. "You didn't come here for me. You came for yourself? To feel like you did something right." Ethan didn't flinch. "Maybe I did. Or maybe I just needed to see the girl I once failed become the woman no one can silence." The producer called her name. It was time. She walked past Ethan, but paused. "Don't follow me into the light, Ethan. Just stay out of the way." Then she stepped onto the stage, the cameras rolled, and the world began listening. The studio lights beamed down as Zainab Bakir sat poised beneath them, her Ankara dress bold and defiant against the sterile white of the stage. Across from her sat the anchor, Ngozi Abe, a seasoned journalist known for piercing interviews. Ngozi smiled gently. "Zainab, Nigeria knows your blog. But tonight, we want to know the girl behind Blood Money, My Life Was Not For Sale. Tell us, who is Zainab?" Zainab inhaled deeply. "I was a child when I learned silence could be deadly. My stepmother sold me like a product. My father disappeared. The men who came after, they all wanted something." Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "But one day, I stopped whispering my pain and started writing it." Ngozi leaned forward, voice soft. "And what do you say to the women still trapped in homes like yours?" Zainab's eyes shimmered. "Your body is not a debt. Your silence is not consent. And your past is not a sentence." The audience clapped, but it wasn't the applause that mattered. It was the hashtags that exploded online. Hashtag Zainab Speaks. Hashtag Her Voice Matters. Hashtag Nigerian Daughters Rise. Even the National Assembly took notice. And far across town, Teo watched in bitter silence as the girl he tried to buy became a woman the nation couldn't ignore. In a sleek high-rise overlooking Ikoyi, Teo Daniel stood before a massive floor-to-ceiling window, the city glittering below. But his reflection, cold, tired, cornered, was what held his gaze. He turned as his personal assistant, Deji, rushed in, eyes wide. "Sir, you need to see this." The screen on Teo's desk lit up. It wasn't Zainab's blog this time. It was a leaked email between him and Kala. A bank transfer. A contract. Subject line, "Final payment for virgin bride." The story had hit every major news outlet. His name was everywhere. Billionaire Teo Daniels implicated in sexual exploitation scandal. Exclusive, Zainab Bakir's abuser unmasked. Teo's mouth went dry. He reached for the phone, but it buzzed fast. "Incoming call, EFCC." He didn't answer. He couldn't. "They won't touch me," he muttered. But his voice held no conviction. Outside, protesters were gathering. Placards with his face. Chants. "Justice for Zainab. Teo must pay." Suddenly, everything he'd built, his empire, his image, his invincibility, was cracking. And for the first time, Teo Daniels felt fear. Real fear. As the news broke, Kala Bobojit's mansion in Victoria Garden City became a ghost house. The same woman who once commanded fear with her voice now trembled as EFCC agents knocked on doors across Lagos. She stuffed cash into a duffel bag, trembling fingers dropping words as she scanned headlines on her phone. Stepmother from hell, Kala Bobojit implicated in human trafficking ring. She tried calling Teo. No answer. She tried leaving through the back gate. The police were already there. Kala's voice cracked as she shouted, "I have powerful friends." But no one came. Just handcuffs. And silence. The courtroom was packed. Zainab walked in wearing a white bubu embroidered with gold, a symbol of purity reclaimed. Ethan was seated silently behind her, not as a hero, but as a witness to her fire. Teo Daniel stood in the defendant's box, smaller than ever. The prosecution played the audio recordings, the contracts, and Zainab's live stream. When she took the stand, the room went quiet. They thought I was voiceless. But here I am. And I'm not afraid anymore. By the end of her testimony, the judge's gavel fell with a finality that thundered across Nigeria. Guilty. On all counts. Zainab turned her pain into policy. With support from NGOs, activists, and thousands of survivors, she founded the Betrayal Foundation, a safe haven for girls rescued from domestic abuse and trafficking. Her blog became a global platform. She was invited to speak at the UN in Geneva. And through it all, she never let the past change her future. My story was once a cage, she told a cheering audience, now, it's a key for others. One rainy afternoon, a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. It was from Ethan. I didn't deserve your forgiveness, but I always prayed you'd find your freedom. If you found peace, that's enough for me. I'll always be proud of you, from afar. She smiled gently, folded the letter, and placed it in her archive of scars, not to reopen wounds, but to remember the woman who survived them. Months later, Zainab sat at a quiet cafe in Abuja. Her hair tied back, her eyes calm. She wasn't waiting for love, fame, or applause. She was simply living. A young girl walked up, nervously holding a book. Miss Zainab, your story saved me. Can I hug you? Zainab stood, pulled the girl in, and whispered. You write your own story. And you'll survive it too. As the sun set across the skyline, Zainab knew. She was no longer a girl sold into silence. She was a woman who spoke nations into healing. And her story was just beginning.